I have never used an acrylic marker that has a brush nib, so I'm pretty curious to try these out. Hi, Shanna Rowe Jackson here from Caution Artists at Play, and today we're going to have just a fun little sketchbook session with these markers. I might also paint some rocks. We'll see how it goes. These were sent to me by the company themselves. This company is somehow loosely related to the Paul Rubens company because that's who reached out to me to send these to me. This will be 100% my opinion. And you can find these on a website called Lightwish, and they also have a lot of Paul Rubens supplies and things like that. So let's just take a look at these. These have 48 colors. They are double-ended, which is super exciting. They come in this fun little case. On the back, it shows here all the different colors. There is no Lightfast information, so I expect these to be more of a student grade, which I have been working a lot more in my sketchbook, and so I have been using a lot of supplies that I normally wouldn't because I'm working in my sketchbook more and I'm not as worried about things fading, and so I think that's mainly what I'm going to use these for. But it also shows that they can be used on things like rocks and ceramics and fabric and things like that. Basically just your run-of-the-mill sort of acrylic markers like what you would expect from them. But the reason why I accepted these is because, ooh, this is fun. I like the way that opens. Really, really, really pretty. I think that's really cool. That snaps on this end and then it just opens up like a book. I really like the packaging. The reason why I accepted these though is because I have seen lately it's become popular for some companies to come out with acrylic markers that have a brush nib, which up until now hasn't really been that common. Usually you're going to get a bullet nib or a chisel nib or something like that, and these actually have a brush nib, and so that's why I was curious to try these. And so I just want to see how well a brush nib works and if it gets gunked up. And that's what the brush nib looks like. These each have 2 colors, so I don't know how long they will last because obviously this is going to be split in half, so I don't know how long these will last. But again, I think these are going to be perfect for fun crafting things and for my sketchbook. And so, you know, times when it doesn't really call for a fine art medium, in those cases I would obviously use my more expensive acrylic markers that have Lightfast ratings. But for sketchbook use and stuff, I think it's going to be fun. So I'm just going to swatch these out, and yeah, they don't seem to have actual color names on them. If they do, it might be written in Chinese, but they feel nice. They're a little bit thinner. The barrel's a little thinner than what you might expect from a lot of the markers commonly have thicker barrels, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. I have little hands. I'm used to using colored pencils, so I'm not upset that it's kind of thin. But got a dark purple on this end, and I'm really excited. A lot of fun colors in this. And today I just want to relax and have a fun time playing with markers. So come along with me, and that's what we'll do. So as I mentioned, these don't seem to have names on them, but they do have color numbers on the caps of each. And one thing that I do like is that it has this part of the barrel shows the color as well, so you can easily put the cap back on. So you can tell very easily by looking at the marker which end is which color. And so I do definitely like that. So I'm going to use the numbers and go by that for the swatching. So far, it is coming out really smoothly. I was kind of worried with acrylic paint. The nibs can kind of get gunky, but I'm really liking the brush nib so far. So something that I just noticed is some of these, the barrel doesn't really match the paint that well. For instance, number 51, look how dark this cap and this barrel is, and that's number 51. However, this one I discovered 63 and 129 appear to be swapped in there. 63 is marked as the darker yellow. 129 is neon. But when I put down 129, that's what I get. And when I put down 63, I get the neon. So I think they were swapped in here. And that's the first one I've come across so far, but I'm not quite halfway through yet, so hopefully there aren't others that are swapped. But yeah, so I wanted you to be aware of that. I'm gonna keep on going. $152 and $132 are pretty similar. I like that they have number 66 underlined. Okay, so first impressions, the colors are fun. They're a lot of fun, and I was really pleasantly surprised by how well these flowed and how well they laid down. The white is not as opaque as I would have hoped for an acrylic marker. I laid down just a line of Sharpie and came over it with the white. I was not overly impressed with that, though. I mean, a few layers and it will lay down more. Really, the only couple cons I see so far with these is the fact that these two were switched, which could have easily happened during the manufacturing process. And a couple of the colors are like really close. So while we have 48 colors here, really in actuality, I feel like it would have been more fun had they thrown in, I don't know, some different colors, because these are very close. These are pretty close. So there's a couple that are closer than I would like. These ones are very close. So other than that, so far, I'm really liking them. I do think that they will be fun. They lay down on the sketchbook paper really well. They're not pulling up the fibers of the paper or anything like that. Let's take a look at how they will do on a rock. So I just have this fun little rock here that I pulled out of the yard earlier today. Let me see, what do I want to paint on here? I'm going to go buy an old standby and see if I can paint some sort of landscapey element on here. Oh, wow. That is showing up way better than I expected it to. I'll leave the mountains like rock with maybe a few details from the pens. This is essentially what I like to use markers for anyways, when it comes to acrylic markers, is crafting. But I do use some markers in my fine artwork that I plan to sell, and as I mentioned earlier, I won't be using these for that, just because I don't have light fast ratings or anything like that. There's a lot of neons and pastels in this set, which are beautiful, but usually are fugitive colors. But I think it's good every once in a while, because I review a lot of different art supplies on my channel, and a lot of times they're really expensive art supplies. Occasionally, I want to kind of show you supplies that are a little different than what I usually use, just to show you that there are different things out there, and you can have fun with supplies even if they aren't the name brand supplies that we all know and love. It's good to occasionally try something just because you think it's fun. And so I haven't been accepting a lot of free art supplies. Like, people reach out quite often when you're on YouTube, and I haven't been accepting a lot lately. I get a lot of offers for things like markers and stuff like that, but because I have been wanting to try some acrylic markers that have a brush nib, when this came through my email, it just piqued my interest, and so I thought it would be fun to share with all of you. gonna make this little crag like a waterfall type thing. Not making masterpieces, just having a nice relaxing day in the studio. Just needed. I'm working on a really detailed colored pencil piece right now. And so it's nice to take a break from that and do stuff that's just fun and playful. So these markers showed up just at the right time, honestly. I wish they had a darker, earthier green. They have some dark blues, but not really any good dark greens. So I'm having a hard time figuring out how I want to do this tree line. Okay, so now I want to see what we can do on wood, and then I'm going to play around in the sketchbook, I think. Definitely sinks into the wood, which is to be expected. I didn't prime the wood. Okay, so here is my fun little grapefruit ornament. I will probably spray it with something to make it shiny. These are really, really matte, which either, you know, could be a plus or minus. It just depends on your taste. I would like some of them to not dry as matte because they have almost a bit of a chalky look when they dry, because they dry, a lot of times they'll dry lighter than they look when you first put them down. And so that is something to keep in mind, especially if you're trying to do anything with color accuracy. It can be a little bit difficult. So anyway, there's that one. Now I'm going to jump in the sketchbook and just play around a little bit. Okay, moving on to the sketchbook now. Because these dry really matte and flat, I thought it would be fun to just do a simple flat illustration to reflect that style. I've done an illustration like this before in my past sketchbook, and you may have seen it in my sketchbook tour video I did a while back. But basically, it's just a simple fruit bowl, and it's going to be surrounded by really flat matte colors with just a little bit of pattern and design thrown in. And so there's not going to be a lot of high detail here. I'm just playing around and using the flat qualities of these markers to my advantage. And again, this is my sketchbook, so it's a fun place to play, and so this is where I come to create artwork that I wouldn't normally create. And typically I'm working with realism and things like that, and so occasionally I just want to hop in, do a fun illustration, and you know, just have a good time. I think it's great when I'm working on really detailed pieces. I tend to come to my sketchbook to play, and so I thought this would be a good opportunity to do that. So I drew in my fruit. I used a Pilot Color Eno mechanical pencil, which is a colored mechanical pencil, sketched it out, and now I'm just going in with my flat colors. And then I decided I wanted to bring in some outlines, and so I'm doing some fun illustrative outlines with the black marker because I wanted to test out how well these brush pens did with that. And I have to say, the brush tips are a little bit soft for this, and so it makes it a little bit difficult to get that fine detail. My outlines tended to be a little bit shakier, and the brushes had started to fray just a little bit, especially the ones that I had used on the rock and the wood before, and so it gives like a little bit of a shaky illustration line, which I almost kind of like. This kind of reminds me of 90s cartoons like Rugrats, especially the color scheme. This is like really throwing me back to the original Rugrats when the outlines were still hand done and kind of shaky. That's kind of the vibe I'm feeling with this illustration, and I don't hate it. I'm really not mad at it because that was my favorite show. But Something else that I wanted to talk about with these markers is the fact that obviously they're acrylic markers, so they dry really fast, which makes it easier to layer over things, but that can make it more difficult to blend. As you can see in the tablecloth that the fruit bowl is on, I had a hard time getting good blends in the larger areas. And also, because they're acrylics and they dry out fast, it's hard to have the marker open for long periods of time without that brush nib getting kind of dried out. I did find that putting the cap back on kind of for a little bit remedied that. They didn't dry out completely. I didn't run out of ink, but I had worried that I was starting to because the way it felt. But then once I put the cap back on, it was great. And something that is fantastic about these brush nibs is the fact that you don't have to pump them ahead of time like you do with other acrylic markers. They are ready to go. You take the cap off, the acrylic is already there and ready to go and is flowing, and they flow really well. So again, there are no Lightfast ratings, and they are not available open stock. So this is something that I think would be best for what I'm using it here for. Like working in the sketchbook, playing around with crafts, things like that. They are available on the website itself, but they're available on Amazon cheaper right now. They're about 20 bucks, again, subject to change because prices are always subject to change, but they're about $20 right now on Amazon, and you can actually get a $5 off coupon on top of that. So that's the direction I would go in, but I will link both the Lightwish link and the Amazon link below. I don't know how long they'll stay that cheap, but that's a pretty good price for 24 markers, which equals out to 48 colors. Again, I kind of wish there was more variety and some darker colors, but for something that's not really a high-end product, these were fun to play around with. Wow, I have made quite the mess on my desk, but here we are. Here's my final sketchbook piece. Overall, I did enjoy myself playing with these markers and getting to know them more. I had a couple things that made me stumble along the way, as I mentioned in the voiceover. You know, some of the tips were getting a little frayed after working on the rock and on the piece of wood, and they were a little soft. But other than that, it flowed really well. You don't want to leave the caps off too long, but this is an excellent product for playing around in the sketchbook, doing crafty things on wood and on rocks and things like that, and just, you know, having a good time with no expectations. And so I did enjoy myself. I like what I came up with, and I will definitely be using these in the future in my sketchbook. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. You have a fantastic day. Bye. Wait, don't go away just yet. If you liked this video, you're sure to like this one too. Also, don't forget to hit subscribe.